Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Mayor Randall Woodfin's Small Business Conference Call. Thank you for being with us today to ask questions and get updates from Mayor Randall Woodfin. We will also have with us on this call today the Director of the Department of Innovation and Economic Opportunity at the City of Birmingham, Dr. Josh Carpenter, and with the Birmingham Business Resource Center, Bob Dickerson. If you have questions to ask during this call today, please press 7 on your keypad and you will be able to talk with one of our screeners as we get your questions up. Now, let me introduce to you Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Hey, good morning to everyone on this call. I imagine there are a lot of people on this call this morning. What I am going to attempt to do is be brief and succinct in what I want to share, and then allow Dr. Josh Carpenter, who has been the architect and can give you all nuance and detail around Be Hamstrong, and then allow Bob Dickerson to share some information on his role and how he is supporting small businesses during this time in our community as well. And then we will open it up for questions. And so if I can step back for a second and give you all just a high level of, as it relates to the COVID-19 coronavirus. As many of you all know, we're in unprecedented times, not only in our city and community, but in our nation and the world. And this has not only now caused a health crisis, but we are now teetering on an economic crisis as well. And for the people on this call, it hits home in a way that it makes me sad, truthfully. I mean, the people on this phone are hurting just in a few days. And I know many of you all are dependent on things like customers and walk-in and other things you need. And over a 14-day period, without the necessary cash flow you need, things can change. For some of you all, that's less than 14 days. And for some on this call, that's probably a little over 14 days. Either way, everyone on this phone call is hurting. We know that, we acknowledge that, and because we know that and acknowledge that, what we've attempted to do is jump in right away, not necessarily waiting on the federal government or the state government to see what we could do as an administration to support our local economy and the risk takers on this phone who give blood, sweat, tears, and equity in their small business every single day. And it's not just you all, it's your hourly employees that we're also worried about, that you're worried about, even to the point of last night I spoke to one of you all, and you've already, in the 2-day window, have had to lay off at least 50 employees for the combination of all of your small businesses. All of that to say this, we've created the BeHamstrong.com, and I encourage you, if you're in front of a computer right now or on your cell phone right now, take the time to pull that website up right now. The more information you can share with us, the more data we can gather. It informs us on being in a position to make better decisions on your behalf and leverage and allocate and champion to get resources on your behalf as well, outside of the city's limited capacity. With that, there's one more note I want to make, and that is this. I have to talk to you all on this phone like I talk to everybody else. 3 things. Please use and practice common sense as it relates to this COVID-19. 1, if you are sick, stay home. Self-quarantine, that includes distance from your family if others live with you in your household. 2, please continue to use good hygiene and washing your hands and hand sanitizer, as well as sharing that with your employees for those who still have employees engaging. 3, please be extremely intentional about practicing social distancing. These 3 things is what I have told faith leaders, it's what I've told the CEO corporate community and any group of people I speak to. So it's important that you hear that from me as well. With that, I have a couple more thoughts, but I'll yield this time to turn it over to Dr. Carpenter, who can give you all more detail about Be Hamstrong. Josh?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. First of all, allow me to echo what the mayor said. the folks who are on this call take more risks in a day than most people in our workforce do in a lifetime. And I just want to, first of all, say thank you and know that we are here with you, and we are doing our best to drive resources to you in whatever way we can. So you all need to know that we appreciate you as consumers, whether that's drinking your coffee or eating your meals or buying the goods and services you produce or hearing your advice when we're in difficult times. And so we want you to be able to stay in service, not just because you provide valuable service to our community, but because you are also among the biggest employers collectively in our city. You're the backbone of our economy. And so our goal right now, before we do any other part of the economic stimulus package, was to stabilize you. And we can't do it all, but what we're trying to do is lay the groundwork to help keep you stable and to provide as much information to you as possible. So let me break that down in a couple of steps. First, we have created an emergency loan fund, maximum amount of $25,000 to go to small businesses, and we're classifying small businesses as businesses under 50 employees, regardless of type. So it's not just restaurants, it's not just retail, it's any type of business in our city that operates with 50 employees. And we are focusing on businesses who are trying to avoid staff reductions or to maintain operations given the revenue loss expected from COVID-19. So we are trying to identify those businesses as quickly as possible. The city has allocated $1 million in an emergency fund, and then our department, the Department of Innovation and Economic Opportunity and Office of Business Diversity and Opportunity, led by Tanae Dolphin, have allocated another $200,000. So there'll be $1.2 million of public sector funding. Just this morning, we were actively on the phone with local lenders trying to secure an additional $1.2 million in matching funds to get us to a total of $2.4 million in the loan pool. The goal is to publish the loan application within the next 24 to 48 hours, and we're working diligently with the administrator of the fund, the Birmingham Business Resource Center, as well as partners in the fund, including the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham and those other lenders, to identify a loan committee and a loan structure, and we will publish that as soon as we possibly can. We want you to hear us. The second piece of this is data. We are only as effective as the data we can collect from you all in terms of both our response and collecting data to help shape the response from the federal government and the state government. There are several different opportunities for funding at the state and federal levels, but some of them are contingent upon our ability to deliver data as, quote, a disaster area for COVID-19. For example, in order for any small business in Birmingham or Jefferson County to receive funding from the SBA, which was recently announced by the administration, we have to first be declared a disaster area. In order to do that, we have to collect data from small businesses who have been affected. If you go to BeHamstrong.com, you can do a couple of things. Number one, we can register the impact of this disease or its anticipated impact on your business. Number two, we can match you with a local lawyer so that if you're sitting on this call and wondering whether or not COVID-19 has triggered your business insurance policy, and more specifically the business interruption portion of your business policy, insurance policy, we can have a lawyer review that for you pro bono. Number three, you can fill out a form that we will then send to the SBA so that people know that Birmingham has indeed and should indeed be declared a disaster area for the COVID-19 crisis. The next thing that I would ask that you do is, if you have laid off people, and we understand that that is a very real possibility and, in fact, a reality for several thousand workers in our community, we ask that you send them to BeHamstrong.com as well. There's a section for individuals. If individuals, and you would also be included as a small business owner, particularly if your business has had to shut down, you could list yourself as an individual who has been impacted negatively by COVID-19. If you do that, what we're trying to do is match job opportunities with people in our database as quickly as we possibly can. In that scenario, what we're thinking about is the bottom line is we're going to have new tasks and new roles and responsibilities that have to be fulfilled in order for our community to move through this crisis. At this time, that could be everything from meal couriers to meal preparers to helping at testing sites. And so what we're going to ask is that individuals who are willing to work and get paid for that work sign up. And our goal is to build that system as quickly as possible. We're not there yet, but the more data we get, the better off we'll be in building that response. So in short, we're working diligently to establish the loan fund. And that loan fund, just to give some quick parameters, is a 180 days, zero payment, zero interest loan, forgivable loan structure. We are asking that lenders match that, and so we don't know the size of the pool yet, but we're going to grow it as fast as we possibly can. That loan application will be available very soon, and if you want to know exactly when it will be available, please go to behamstrong.com to register your business so that we can send it to you. We are fortunate to have an expert who has spent many years in the small business lending sector as a banker and as a consultant, Bob Dickerson, who has run the Birmingham Business Resource Center for a very long time. I'll leave it to Bob to answer some questions about the fund structure and tell you a little bit about his business. But Bob, maybe say the high-level goals for what BBRC is hoping to accomplish here. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Mayor Woodfin. First of all, let me acknowledge the two of you, Mayor and Dr. Carpenter, for being creative, for being aggressive, and for really taking a step to get ahead of the problems that this COVID-19 is posing for businesses. We know that it is suppressing economic commerce, economic activity, and to be able to get ahead of it and to provide some relief, some funding, some business finance is something that is very good. I'm very proud that you called on us at the Birmingham Business Resource Center to help, and we're very happy to help. As you mentioned, we have been operating in the Birmingham area now for about 24 years, providing primarily small business administration loans to businesses, and we've done our share of micro lending. So we're really happy to be part of this. My staff is, if you could get excited about something like this, I will say that we are excited. And excitement might not be the right word, but we're certainly eager to get started. Our application is complete, and we should be sending that up to be able to get that out to the community and on the various websites within probably before the end of the day. As Dr. Carpenter mentioned, we're going to be entertaining applications for loans that will be from $10,000 to $25,000. The initial term of these loans will be 180 days at 0%. There will be some provisions to have the remainder of the loans termed out. We want to make every effort to help every business that we possibly can. We are streamlining the things that we usually do to underwrite loans. We anticipate being able to do very quick decisioning and very limited underwriting so that we can get this money out to the business community as quickly and as easily, especially easily for the business as possible. I do encourage all of the business owners who are going to apply to be as thorough as you possibly can in meeting the checklist items. Now, we've reduced the number of items that we would generally have on a checklist to items that we think most businesses have readily available. And again, just want to encourage you to please complete the checklist to the best of your ability. That's going to help us make a positive and affirmative decision in your case and not have to come back and ask for additional information. You know, we're going to look favorably and try to make sure that we help businesses that have been impacted to try to reduce staff reductions. We're going to try to keep people in business. And our goal is to make every loan feasible given the amount of money that we have. So if there are questions about the process, I'd be happy to answer them. As all of you know, this is something that is moving real fast in real time, and some of the things, some of the answers, if we don't know, we certainly are going to be able to find those and provide them to you.
So before Dr. Carpenter and Bob get into question and answer, let me say this. I know there were some technical difficulties at the beginning of this call. Many of you all should know there are well over 800 people on this call. I'm looking at the analytics now while we're on it. And at least, scrolling down for a second, there are at least close to 300 people that have questions. So I can tell you in advance we may not be able to get to every question. But what I can also tell you is that this call is being recorded. So for those who came in late on the call, you will be in a position to hear the entire call at any point of time, over and over as much as you want. In addition to that, for those questions we can't get to, because I don't think we can get to answering almost 300 questions on this call, you all will be in a position at bhamstrong.com to post any questions or comments you have so we can keep communicating with each other. With that, what I'll do now is turn it back over to Rick Journey, who will facilitate the process of questions that puts Dr. Josh Carpenter and Bob Dickerson in a position to answer the questions.
Thank you, Mayor. One other aspect of that for all the people who are on the line who have a question, in addition to the recording that will be available later online, at the end of this call, if you have a specific question that you were not able to get to, you can stay on the line and you can leave a message, and we will follow up with those questions as well. So at the end of this call, you can stay on the line and you will be able to leave a message, and we can follow up with this call. With that, I'm going to start off with some of our calls. We're going to try to, or some of our questions. We're going to try to move through as many as we can in this time. The first one, Mayor, this one comes from a company that says a key way to keep construction businesses open is to keep the permit office open. What happens if the city stops receiving and processing permits and inspections?
At this time, we don't see the city of Birmingham closing its doors here at the city. Permits, the PEP office, which is Planning, Permits, and Engineering, has been deemed essential. We believe certain businesses must continue, and the construction industry, what it's doing in our community, is important not only to that potential new business that will open, but for many of you all on this phone who are dependent on those construction workers on that site. And so I think it's imperative that we have not only deemed the permits department as essential, but we will continue to keep that office open.
Our next question, and this is a very blunt question. Our business is going to have to shut down completely. We're spending money to be open but not getting businesses.
So I'm going to attempt to answer this in two ways. The first thing is this, and everybody should know this. Yes, I have declared a state of emergency for the city. That gives me broad powers in the middle of a health crisis. But I'm also striking a balance and knowing the dependency of the folk on this phone as it relates to what you all produce for not only this community but for the city of Birmingham. That is attached to this. There are certain things that are not in my control. The Jefferson County Health Department, through their own statutory power that regulates restaurants and many other retail businesses within this community and outside of retail, which also include nursing homes as well as child daycare centers. They have the authority under a health crisis to regulate as well, to open or shut as well businesses within our city limits. They don't have to ask for permission. The good news is they're at least communicating with us, and if anything, in the ideal world, we would get a heads-up notice. But if anything is going to be shut down as it relates to small businesses in this city, that's a call at this point that the Jefferson County Department of Health is making, because we are in the middle of a health crisis. And so I imagine all businesses on this phone are not treated equally as it relates to if that happens. For example, there are some essentials that you can't shut down. You can't shut down a neighborhood grocery store. You can't shut down, believe it or not, a certain dollar store, convenience store, or gas station, because for some folk in this community, all of those are deemed as a person's only ability to have access to food. So some of those will be the exceptions. But if that takes place, in the ideal world, I'll ask of two things: that the health department give our office notice, and two, that you all have a minimum of some form of a short runway to at least plan out. But the health department's priority is the health of life first, and they're moving at such a rapid pace because this is so fluid. Some of the information coming down, including up to certain retail or certain businesses closing, it's moving so fast, we're in a position to only respond, and I know that's not fair, it doesn't seem right, but with this crisis, they're deeming it the right thing to do. So I know that was a lot of words. I hope I answered the question as best as I could, but it's not a simple yes or no because this is fluid.
We have a question for hotels. Could they take an extension for the occupancy tax or drop it temporarily?
Dr. Carpenter, you want to answer that question related to your conversation with Lester Smith, who's over finance for the city?
So I think we need to evaluate that conversation, that policy, and its impact both on our balance sheet and yours. I think we should follow up that conversation with the Department of Finance. What we're trying to do now is actually prepare. The state has done some tax relief as well. And so what we're trying to do is evaluate at all three levels, well, all four levels of taxes that you pay, the city, county, state, and federal. We're trying to basically ascertain where all of the relief is coming and where it is needed. And it's happening at a blistering pace. So I think we would be willing to at least look at that. So I'd love to get more information on precisely how that is affecting particularly small hotels. I think that's something that we're interested in evaluating.
I have a question here. This company provides staffing for hospitality events. How quick will employment be provided for hospitality staff?
We're going to try to spend the so we have two funds that we're going to try to establish. One is the emergency loan fund, which has been our first priority. The second has been to create a resilient worker fund. And so what we would encourage you to do is right now send your hospitality workers to that website, and we will hopefully be able to provide jobs as soon as possible. I can't guarantee that they'll be in hospitality. We are very concerned about businesses that have been negatively affected by event cancellations. In fact, that's one of the top priorities of the emergency loan fund. So I hope you'll signal that to us when you go to behamstrong.com. And again, please send your workers there as well.
Josh, I believe this is a question for you as well. This one is asked, it's stuff that you've covered, but I think for this person who's on the line, you may want to update. What are the funding plans for barbershops and beauty salons?
So there are two aspects of barbershops and beauty salons. There's and I spoke with another public official in the county yesterday who was concerned about how the order may affect them. I have relayed that concern to the health department, and my goal is that you can get clarity specifically on what the gatherings of 25, 50 or more mean. It may mean that classes are disrupted, but that normal operations do not have to be suspended. At least that is my current interpretation of the order. But we do need clarity from the health department there. In terms of loans for those businesses, that's exactly, we're not breaking down businesses by type, as you all can tell from the fact that there are 800 businesses here, from individual contractors to construction companies to small business to nail salons to barbershops. Everybody is experiencing a drop in demand, and so our purpose in the loan fund was not to break down businesses by type. And I'm sure Bob can speak to this, but it's not as if we intend to give this loan to one certain type of business or another. And one of the things that we're prioritizing is, frankly, companies that can't get capital from another location. In other words, if you're a high-growth tech startup who could potentially get venture capital at some point, we're probably going to ask you to push on that first and use our loan to help companies who may not get access to capital in any other form.
Thank you, Josh. We are pulling in a couple of other questions. Stand by for just one moment as we gather those up. Our screeners are still working through, so thank you for your patience. We have a lot of calls that are coming in. So I'm going to ask, there's a couple of parts of this, and and part of this, Josh, may be for you, but there's a couple of pieces on this particular question. Plumbing, heating, and air contractor wants to know if he is considered essential services and if they will be able to receive funds to help their business.
I think that certainly Alabama summers make heating and air quite essential, and we're approaching it. So I think that sounds like an essential service to me. In terms of whether or not they're eligible for the loan fund, as long as they have under 50 employees, absolutely.
Thank you, Josh. We continue to get more people joining our line, coming on, and we're still screening through the numbers. So stand by, or the questions. So stand by. We're waiting for our next question to be posted here. Just one moment. That's the same question we just answered. So this question: rent for business owners is a concern. Will there be any concessions made for landlords during this time?
So we are not, we cannot under law mandate landlords to make rent concessions. However, we are strongly and sternly encouraging landlords to give rent holidays. I spoke with a developer last night and a landlord last night who told me that they were going to their lender to ask for rent holidays. I am happy to help make that case with both lenders and landlords. I know the mayor is as well. We cannot guarantee that. Obviously, there are many different landlords, and we are happy to make the case for why this makes sense. But let's just do it logically so that when you are making the case to your landlord, you can help make this case too. If I am a small business owner and I can't pay my rent in April, but I have enough money to keep my small business going till June, wouldn't you rather take the risk on me being able to pay you than to backfill rent with a new customer, i.e. a new small business, in a short period of time? The answer is it makes most sense, particularly with a steep economic downturn, for them to hang in there with you. So help us make the case to your landlords. If they have questions about why that's our rationale, please direct those concerns to our office. I'm very happy to sit with you and make that case, because I think it's important that people hear that, and we'll do what we can to help make sure that those landlords understand that this isn't just a one-off issue with small businesses. This is a widespread crisis. And so our hope is that they hang with, with the folks that are already paying them rent, and that they give them a rent concession with an eye toward the fact that, A, there'll be less overhead costs to maintaining businesses because many of them will have their lights out, and B, that will lead to lower depreciation costs, and C, in a time of such great uncertainty, why would you create more uncertainty by letting a small business go when you need to keep them? So those are my high-level thoughts.
Josh, because we may have additional people joining us on this line, it's important for us to remind folks of ways to get information and contact information. I've got a question that came earlier about resources, in particular resources for small businesses available to help pay employees. So would you mind taking a brief moment to just recap what you had said earlier, just for those who may be joining us on the line?
Sure. There are two parts to the stimulus package that the city is trying to push forward. The first is aimed at the business owners on this call, small businesses who were doing well, delivering valuable services and paying employees and keeping our economy humming, but now have been hit by COVID-19 and whose business cycles haven't just been disrupted. In many cases, their incomes have been decimated. What we want to do is recognize that, number one, employing small businesses and keeping them afloat and stabilizing them where possible is our most important priority as a city that is dependent upon small businesses to run. So that's what the first piece of this puzzle is. You can, when you're filling out your loan application, and I'm sure Bob Dickerson would agree here, we want to know if you're going to have to reduce staff count by taking this loan, or if you'll be able to maintain employees because you are taking on a loan. And again, it's a 180-day, zero payment, zero interest loan that is forgivable at the end of the payment period. But the goal is to bridge the gap between this current economic downturn and what we hope is a 30 to 60-day crisis that would allow you to reopen your doors and pursue your normal business cycle as soon as possible. The second fund that we're trying to put forward is the Resilient Workers Fund. And much of those details are still being put together. As you all know, this is unfolding really fast for each of us. And our goal there is to make sure that workers who have been displaced or laid off during this crisis have an opportunity to help not only get some income supplement through some paid work, but to also do valuable work to help us get us through this crisis. And that's everything from meal couriers to potentially helping us set up testing sites to preparing meals. We need to balance the public health crisis with the fact that there are new jobs that need to be performed in order for Birmingham to get through this crisis. So one of the things that we're thinking hard about is how we create funds for that opportunity. So in both cases, you need to go to BeHamstrong.com, BeHamstrong.com. Both send your workers there, and as a small business, please go there as well.
I got you. And let me share this with everybody, just from a time standpoint. It was only a few days ago that the health department demanded that restaurants and bars change the way they engage their customers. And there wasn't a lot of heads-up notice to the city or you all on this phone. Unfortunately, because the rate of the spread of this is moving so fast, particularly within Jefferson County, compared to the other 66 counties, I imagine, and many of you all have already probably imagined and embraced this as well, that the health department will continue to make changes with very short notice. I'm saying all that to say this. Some of your questions, if I am very candid with you, we're not in a position to answer today because this is so fluid. What I can commit to you is this. Between Josh quarterbacking economic development for the city and finding creative ways to support small businesses, between Bob Dickerson managing this process, Between our conversations with the corporate private sector, we're in a position to hopefully assist us in matching funds because they're limited tax dollars. And then probably one of the most important things, many of you all are going to have questions around occupational taxes and other form of taxes as it relates to your business. Lester Smith, who was the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Birmingham, couldn't be on this call. But rest assured, at this point, on a daily basis, not weekly, but daily basis, he's assessing different scenarios of not only what we have to do to continue to provide services for the city as it relates to how our taxes come in, but how do we offset and support the small business owners out there that we're dependent on to receive those taxes. So I would imagine today, for a lot of you all with those tax questions of what we can offset, what we could hold, what could we suspend temporarily, today on this call, I am in no way, honestly, to answer those questions because it's moving that fast. The priority on this call is to figure out a way through this loan program. The second thing, which we've been working on since last Saturday and Sunday, is this program for your hourly employees. And then we will stay in constant contact with Lester Smith, who's over finance for the city, to see if it's possible we could offset something, which today there is no guarantee. Just one other note, and then we can get back into some questions, is that we will continue to work with the state as well to see what they can offer us. And I think it's important that we continue to talk to our federal delegation to get something signed as soon as possible with SBA to get these federal dollars not only flowing to the state level, but to get them flowing to our local level as well, which we believe will add to easing some of the pain you all are experiencing right now as well.
Mayor, our next question, and I'll offer a couple of thoughts on this as I ask it. We have a physical therapist who asked, in order to comply with the 6-foot rule, there's difficulty in going to work. Should I adhere to the rule or go in to treat my patients?
I got you. Today there is no 6-feet rule. There is the only rule that has been enacted is no gathering of 25 people or more. That is the only rule that exists from the county and the city. We encourage 6 feet apart. There are always exceptions to rules, and if your business is physical therapy, then of course that suggestion doesn't comply with you. There are already standards, protocol, and procedures on the books that physical therapists have to abide by. We ask that you continue to abide by those, and then just take extra precaution in how you engage your hands prior to engaging your client, as well as your client after their session is complete.
Our next question, is there an official list of viable businesses that are deemed necessary or essential? If so, where can we find that list? Josh?
There is not an official list. There is not an official list.
Thank you. We're coming up to our next question. Just one moment as we establish it. We have, and I'll say, as I'm looking at a lot of these are same questions. It's very similar. It's just phrased in different ways. Am I considered an essential business? So that is a question that we're hearing loud and clear from you, and we will continue to research that. Here's a question: are the loans fixed or revolving loans of credit?
Bob, you want to take that question?
Yeah, sure. These are actually, as we mentioned earlier, the loans are zero interest for the first 180 days. That's 6 months that you get the loan, you don't make any payments, and you don't incur any interest expense. They will be fixed rate after that for the remaining term. So they're not going to be revolving. They're not going to be high interest rates. These loans are actually done in a very compassionate way, a way to get some money out in the hands of business owners that need it to respond to a situation that was not of their own making. And so in terms of the terms of the loan, or pricing as we would call it in the business jargon, these will be very fairly, as a matter of fact, more than fairly priced. You can imagine borrowing money at 0% is probably doesn't really happen. I'm not sure that I've ever seen loans done with no interest rate. And so, thanks to, as the mayor and Josh has mentioned, the foresight of the city, and also the pending generosity of some of the corporate community, we're going to be able to extend those terms.
So we have a question from a director for a small nonprofit. Is BHAM Strong applicable for nonprofit organizations?
So I'll take this question. This was a conversation that started in a public meeting Tuesday. The short answer is no. So let me go ahead and answer the question, and then let me explain why. As it relates to this program at a high level is for-profit small businesses that are revenue producing and revenue generating, and we'll have to lay off hourly employees because they're not able to necessarily depend on their walk-in customers, if that makes any sense. So for this program, as in its current form, is not currently applicable to nonprofits of any nature in size or the service the nonprofit provides, because it's not its intent as a nonprofit is not revenue generating.
Josh, are there any resources that you recommend for nonprofits at this time?
In the short term, there are a lot of organizations who are contemplating how they can be helpful to nonprofits. I know both the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham and the United Way are evaluating the ways that they can help in the short term. So please be on the lookout for information to them and this time.
So let me also add that, and I assume that we're going to be able to get SBA disaster loans in the entire state of Alabama, and nonprofits are considered through the SBA disaster program. And you may want to go ahead and visit sba.gov, I think it's /disaster loans, so you can get a head start on trying to get an application done for those.
Our next question, could you make a general statement about daycares? Will they be able to receive any financial assistance?
That is a good question. Y'all know I'm going to always be candid with you. That is not something we've considered. And so, truthfully, I think it's important that I actually get with Josh and Bob as it relates to when we set this up, what's that included? At a top level, that's not in a position to answer that question, because in one hand, you all actually, families are paying for a service you all provide, but at the same time, it's not necessarily looked at as a usual, defined as a retail/small business. So whoever asked that question, please go to bhamstrong.com and actually leave that question again, but leave a number so we're in a position to actually call you back and get an answer, and or be in a position to provide a public update as it relates to possible other people that are small business owners who operate a daycare facility within our city limits.
We have a question from a plumbing company concerned about putting employees in the public and potentially exposing them to the virus.
So my best response to that is to take a look at what the city of Birmingham is doing. We are still providing essential services for the residents of this city. We're still encouraging people to take out the resident or homeowner or renter to take out their trash, whether it's a small business or a homeowner, because we're still picking up trash. 911 still works, so we still have active police patrolling our streets. If you have an emergency situation, fire and or rescue services will respond. We've additionally increased some funding for personal protective gear. I would suggest to those small companies who have people in the field, whether it's a plumber, whether it's utility or any form of that nature, to find ways to purchase personal protective gear for your employees who are out here engaging in the community.
Is there a way the city can negotiate with Spire and Alabama Power for deferment and utility bills?
I'll take this question. I will start with the resident, and then I will move the conversation to, I guess, a commercial. I think you all will be defined as a commercial customer for our utilities versus what a resident is. The conversation I had with the leadership of the power company, water company, the gas company, our cable / internet companies, Spectrum and AT&T, was very direct, and it was this past Sunday. And I shared that as our small businesses continue to receive being pinched as it relates to the health department movement, then I imagine it will cause a ripple for hourly employees to be laid off. Hourly employees are laid off between a week and the next 30 days. It will put them in a hard position to be able to pay their utility bills. Is there any reprieve or cover for them during this hard time? Each of them expressed to me that they are not necessarily comfortable right now being in a position to cut a person's service based on the crisis our community is facing. However, they also expressed this, and they were very direct. Let's watch how we say that, because every customer is not the same. So we would advise the mayor's office or any of our elected officials can simply share this. If a customer who has a problem paying their utility bill is having a problem, please call our customer line, and I think we will be more than comfortable working with them. That conversation was in isolation to an individual customer, not necessarily a residential customer, not necessarily a commercial customer, which is you all on this phone. The truth is that conversation I have not had that conversation with the utilities. So let's do two things. Let's both have it. If you are on this phone as a commercial customer of a utility and you feel there are problems that you'll have in the next week to 30 days, you should make the call to see how and what they're doing for you as a customer. But I'll commit to you, I will champion commercial customers as well, just like I have residential customers.
This next question has to do with the loan program. Bob, I think you can address this. The question is, how much is interest rate after 180 days?
That has not been determined. It will be much lower than market interest rate, but we still have to come to that conclusion. We haven't as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just want to make a note to everybody. The time is 10:24. We have a hard stop at 10:30. I'm going to try to get through a few more of these questions, look for things that have not been asked as quickly as we can. Several Hispanic customers want to apply. Several Hispanic customers want to apply in Mountain Brook. Are they able to do so? Josh?
Sorry, Rick, can you repeat that one more time?
This one says several Hispanic customers want to apply in Mountain Brook. I believe this is for the assistance program. Are they able to do so?
So to the extent that the fund is set up with City of Birmingham dollars, it will affect City of Birmingham workers.
And this one goes back, this is just a repeat, but we'll do this very quickly. You can answer with I'll do it. You tell me if I'm wrong here. Josh, please let people know how to apply for the loan. Has there been any thought for the city to back a loan directly through the banks, something like loans for small business startups? Josh?
So we've been in direct contact with banks early and often through this period, they think this structure is the right call. The way that we've structured it is basically that the city's debt in the loan fund is subordinate to the debt of the lenders. We think that has to be the structure in order to help underwrite the risk of the lenders and to grow the pie on the fund. That's basically how we're thinking about it. But Bob, do you want to augment that response?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we always encourage our banking community to loan money and to be more aggressive and more assertive as they approach or make loans to businesses that are in the city of Birmingham, perhaps minority-owned businesses or disadvantaged-owned businesses. One of the things that we did mention is we are also engaging some of our CDFIs that operate in the city to at least look at and pay attention to who we're loaning money to, because potentially you could be one of their customers. And I think that actually creates a benefit potentially for them to source new customers and for this loan fund to have various other means of getting the loans taken out.
We've got, I'm going to try to get a couple more questions in here before we wrap up and remind people how they can continue to ask questions. We have a self-employed worker who is a manicurist at a nail salon. Is the money available for business owners like herself who are self-employed but work at a salon?
Josh, I can defer to you, but I do understand that there needs to be a business license. So I would imagine if that person has a Birmingham business license, then I think we can move forward with trying to see if we could process her application.
Yeah, I think there's going to be more information on loan structure and the priorities of the loan committee that will come forward in the next couple of days. And that will probably give some more greater clarity to businesses like the one you mentioned, Rick. And I hope too, though, that individual may if she's experiencing income loss, could sign up in both pools. So in other words, you could easily register at bhamstrong.com as a small business and as an individual who's experienced income loss. So please don't feel like they're exclusive.
And I've got another one, and I can just echo what you said earlier, Josh. Is the loan available for businesses in Homewood? Once again, the bhamstrong.com fund is set up by the city of Birmingham for city businesses, correct?
That's correct. Long term, we have partners in Jefferson County, and of course the mayor and our person of the county commission and others have been really focused on regional cooperation. We just have to be stewards of the city's money at this time with this fund. But our goal is potentially to establish another fund at some point that's more regional, and we're just hoping to set the groundwork with the pilot here with City of Birmingham companies. But I know that our partners at the county are interested in helping, and we want to help businesses all across the county. It's not lost on us that the City of Birmingham employees also are working in other areas in the county. So we want to stabilize as many businesses as possible, but the funds are the funds that the city has actually allocated from its budget have to affect city taxpayers.
We have a question that asks, could you address the issue of testing? Will food workers be prioritized? Unless the mayor says otherwise, what I will refer you to is checking with the health organization's public health department. They would be making those decisions on prioritization. So I want to pass that along. It's 10:29. We're going to have to wrap up. Before the mayor closes us out, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't had your question asked, please stay on the line immediately afterwards, and you can leave a message, and we will respond to as many messages as possible. If you want to leave an email or a phone number, please do. We will collect that in our data as well so that we can keep everyone informed. And with that, with just a few seconds left, I want the mayor to close us out.
We still have a lot of people on this call, so I want to thank you for your patience in remaining on the call, listening to others who have had questions. Again, at the top of this, we mentioned that I know there's a lot of hurt on this phone, and we're doing everything we can to help you all, the men and women on this phone. I promise you that. The second thing is this. Please take the advice of Rick. We are administration that prides ourselves on answering questions, even if you don't like the answer. So staying on the line afterwards to leave your question by leaving us your email, leaving a phone number. BHAMstrong.com is important. Take advantage of all of those so we can answer as many questions as possible. The last thing is the last question, and then I have a comment. Well, two questions. One question was about utilities. So I've already got good news from Alabama Power. They will be treating their commercial customers the same as their residential customers and not cutting off anyone's services during this time. But I also suggest you all to please reach out to your utility provider and call their customer service line. The second question was dealt with workers. Will they get a priority for testing? Candidly as I could be, the language I hear from the state is very different from what we hear from the health community here, which is this. The state is saying there's enough testing. We don't necessarily agree here on the local ground, and we being the healthcare providers. So what they have set is a local position to state that because there is limited testing, those who will be tested, it will be prioritized based on if one of three things. One, you're feeling symptoms, any of the symptoms related to the COVID-19. Two, if you've been around somebody who has been identified as testing positive for the COVID-19. Or three, you have, an excuse from your doctor to go to one of the testing sites. Outside of that, no one else is necessarily deemed a priority at this point. The last note I'll make is this. We are in this together. BHAM Strong is intentional because even in this crisis and hard time, we are dependent on each other, and we believe we will come out on the other end of this stronger. But while we're in this time, let's continue to lean on each other, show compassion, and be creative in figuring out a way to be on the solutions end of addressing these issues. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to having another conversation with you all next week to continue to give follow-up and engage in Q&A.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to remind everybody once again, if you're still on the line and have a question, stay on the line. You can leave a message. And if you want to leave an email or a phone number, we will compile that and see if we can provide the best available information and most immediate time fashion. Thank you very much for being with us today.